I'm the only one.
Okay, then I'll sit over here so I'm not like.
Give a talk.
I do need your help.
So then you can announce everybody. And Skip, it's only about a mile from here. Yeah, when you go through the light, the road goes to the right. When you come to the light, you go straight. Yeah. And then it would be your first right. First right. Right, it's right before you're going to the beach. I forget the name of that beach. Craigville Beach. There's a street right before Craigville Beach. You a shot right over there.
Grace and peace to all of you from the God who blessed the world for 103 years with the presence of one whose light will never, ever fade, the dear and beloved Lillian Vaccarello. And so on behalf of South Congregational Church here in Centerville and on behalf of the Vaccarello family, we welcome you to this time of celebration of life. 103 years. Such exceptional longevity cannot be contained within this time that we have together this morning. But we will point to the remarkable qualities and salient moments which defined Mrs. Vaccarello's, Lillian's, Lil's life, and the ways through which her life, she brought joy and life and inspiration to so many. And so here in the shelter of God's healing and gracious love, we will celebrate her courage and determination at the age of 13, which set the course of the life she would live. We will celebrate her as a loving and devoted wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, and mother-in-law. We will celebrate her determination, her athletic abilities, and her sense of adventure. We will celebrate her musical prowess and how she employed her lively musical gifts to uplift others across the age spectrum. And we will celebrate her elegance and charisma and God-inspired mission to make the lives of others better. Hers was a life of service and volunteering, including right here in this church building, in our thrifty niche, our thrift shop right downstairs. And hers was also a life of seeking joy. We will also celebrate her faith. When I first met Mrs. Vaccarello, I was impressed by her elegance. She was dressed perfectly and beautifully. And I appreciate the nods. You saw that too. But in getting to know her and learning her life story and getting to know Skip and Jackie and others of you in the family, I realized that her elegance was deeper than her lovely clothing style. In the letter of the Apostle Paul to the Colossians, we read, "Therefore, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourself with compassion and kindness, and above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." Mrs. Vaccarello, Lillian, Lil, did not just clothe herself elegantly with attire. She clothed herself with the heart of God, compassion and kindness and love. And it is because of this that we can be assured, as it is written in Scripture, that she has fought the good fight, she has finished the race, she has kept the faith, and now there is upon her a crown of righteousness, which the Lord has given to her. And there she is, shining brightly in God's eternal realm of love and peace. For our faith assures us that whether we live or whether we die, we belong to God. The poet Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, "Brief is life, but love is long." Actually, 103 years was a pretty long life, but Lillian's love will be even longer because it will live on in each one of you. Let us pray. Holy God, whose mercy is boundless, hold us this morning gently with your compassion and love. Even as we celebrate the life of your beloved Lillian Vaccarello, our hearts also feel the weight of sorrow. and so heal our broken yet grateful hearts for her presence in our lives. And assure us that we have not heard, nor have we seen, nor has our imagination envisioned what you have prepared for those who love you. We pray through Jesus Christ, our risen Savior. Amen. We invite you, as you are able, to stand, and we will sing our first hymn. You will find it on page 300 in your hymnal, In the Garden, and we will sing verses 1 and 2. And just remember, it doesn't matter whether you're loud or on pitch. God receives all of our voices together.
Well, I'd like to offer my welcome as well to all who came out and those who are online. This is being live streamed, so if you have any friends who would like to view it, I'd be very happy to send you the link. And by the way, the hymns that we're singing were those that my mom, that Lil, had picked out well ahead of time. So these were her suggestions as to what we should sing. I'm going to read Psalm 23. Now, Psalm 23 is probably the most familiar psalm in the Bible. I remember as a kid, before Bible was and praying was banned in schools, I remember reading this at school. It's a psalm that was written by King David, and it talks about the love, the compassion that God has for us in the sense of heaven. So let's read this together, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. And Lillian also picked out 2 readings that she wanted at her memorial service at this celebration of life. The first one will be read by Nancy Colley, her niece. Nancy is, as I said, her niece, and she named one of her daughters after Lil. So Nancy, come on up.
Miss Me, But Let Me Go by Edgar Albert Guest. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not for long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this journey that we all must take, and each must go alone, it's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know, and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go.
Nancy, thank you. That was beautiful. So the second reading that Lil picked out is If Tomorrow Never Comes. And she was always one to offer some advice, and there's a little bit of advice in this. And If Tomorrow Never Comes, Ashley Gustafson will now read. Ashley is a great-grandchild.
This is If Tomorrow Never Comes by Nora Cormett Macquarie. If I knew it would be the last time that I'd see you fall asleep, I would tuck you in more tightly and pray the Lord your soul to keep. If I knew it would be the last time that I'd see you walk out the door, I would give you a hug and kiss and call you back for just one more. If I knew it would be the last time that I would hear your voice lifted up in praise, I would tape each word in action and play them back throughout my days. If I knew it would be the last time that I would spare a minute or two to stop and say I love you instead of assuming you know I do. So in case tomorrow never comes and today is all I get, I'd like to say how much I love you, and I hope you will never forget. Tomorrow is not promised to anyone young or old alike, and today may not be the last chance you get to hold your loved ones tight. So if you're waiting for tomorrow, why not do it today? So if tomorrow never comes, you'll surely regret the day that you didn't take an extra time for a smile, a hug, or a kiss. And if you were too busy to grant someone what turned out to be their last wish. So hold your loved ones close today and whisper in their ear that you love them very much and you'll always hold them dear. Take the time to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, or it's okay. And if tomorrow never comes, you'll have no regrets about today.
We will sing another of Lil's favorite hymns, How Great Thou Art. You will find it on page 51 in the blue hymnal. We will sing verses 1 and 2, and we invite you to stand as you are able.
Thank you. You may be seated. If you notice, I stood far away from the mic. I probably have the worst voice in here. But thank you for singing along. Well, as Pastor Sally said, we're here to celebrate my mom's amazing life, and there'll be four of us that'll be speaking, and I'll be the first. Now, my mom had many amazing characteristics, but most importantly, she loved abundantly, and people loved her. She loved Vinny. Vinny loved her. They had a great time together. She loved her children. She loved her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren. Now she has a great-great-grandchild. So she loved everyone abundantly, and that love really drove her to serve. As the pastor mentioned, you have this little booklet, which was a turning point in her life. This is the story that really did change her life at the age of 13. And I'll just summarize that briefly. It really gave her the drive to serve. And this was on Palm Sunday in 1934. She lived in Concord. And at that time, the family didn't have much money, but she had gotten new patent leather shoes. And she and a couple of girlfriends decided to take a walk through the town. And as they walked, they came across a place where the river comes, and some of you from Concord may be familiar with it. And there's a railroad bridge across a trestle bridge, that crossed the river. So Lil had the bright idea, so let's go across the bridge. As they were about halfway across the bridge, they heard the train whistle coming. Her two friends scampered across and were able to make it, but Lil tripped. I guess the patent leather shoes weren't really made for running. So she tripped and fell. But she had the presence of mind, and this is amazing to me, at age 13, she was 13 years old, to lower herself, holding on to these wooden ties as the train passed within inches of her hands. I don't know, at 13, how she did that. And I know I wouldn't be here, and many of us wouldn't be here if she didn't do that. Well, a boy riding a bike, happened to see her hanging from the bridge, and he ran over and he pulled her up. And then she says this about the incident. She said, "When I didn't die in the trestle, I knew that it was God who saved me. He wasn't ready for me, and I made a vow to help others and volunteer my time." And she kept that promise, not only raising a family of 4, working at Green Acres Nursery School, serving the families of those children. And she said she loved the 4- and 5-year-olds especially, and serving their families. And she spent time in many, many other volunteer activities. After I speak, my brother Rick will come and talk about all the volunteer activities that she was involved in. Another of her characteristics is she had a great sense of humor, and she loved to perform. And I have a personal and somewhat embarrassing experience, with her performing. It was at a Little League banquet. I was 12 years old. She was head of the Women's Auxiliary, and somehow she was involved in organizing the banquet. Well, as I said, she loved to perform, so she decided to dress up in these kind of frumpy-looking clothing. I think she had this weird hat on. She blackened some of her teeth so they looked like they were missing. And then she came on stage and started to dance across the stage to the tune of Personality. Now, I'm going to try to see. Some of you may remember it, some of you may not, but this is how it goes. Envision her dancing across the stage. 'Cause she's got personality, walk with personality, talk with personality, smile with personality, charm with personality, love with personality. I was so embarrassed. As a 12-year-old kid, I was trying to sink down. That's my mom. But that was my mom. She was also a writer. She wrote letters to us all. If she has an opinion, as she did in the readings, she had an opinion, she might write you a letter. So we all get letters over time. But she also wrote, and this is very interesting, she wrote a family history of the Hanson family and the Vaccarello family, and this was probably in the mid-90s, so I'd love if somebody else would want to complete some of that. But she wrote the family history. She also wrote her own story. She called it My Story. And I'm going to read some excerpts from that. And I did this on her birthday on July 13th as my grandkids were visiting. And they were just astounded by how different things were when she was growing up than they are now. So I'll read some of the excerpts from that. Of course, she grew up in an immigrant family in Concord, Mass. And her mom and dad had immigrated from Italy. from Italy, from Norway. Her dad worked as an iceman, and I remember an iceman in my neighborhood, but instead of a refrigerator, people had a block of ice delivered to their house, and that's one of the jobs my grandfather did. He also worked as a carpenter, but during the Depression, there wasn't a whole lot of work, so the family didn't have a lot of money, so Lil's mother, my grandmother, would wash clothes for other people, and Lil would deliver the clothes, and they would make a little money, but she also babysat and made money, and she and all the other kids would give the money back to the parents to help support the family. And then she writes that in her early years, up to about age 7, her home had no electricity. She said they read by oil lamps. And then she says this, and I'll just read this. She said, our toilet was located in the basement and had a water closet above it. You had to pull the chain and the water would, and that's how the toilet would flush. And then she says this toilet was at the bottom of the stairs in the kitchen. And so that if somebody opened the door from the kitchen, there you were sitting on the hopper. and the family had no bathtub, if you can imagine that. When I was little, and I'll read this, we bathed only on Saturdays. The baths were taken in the kitchen in a small galvanized tub. The water was heated over the stove and carried to the tub. We all shared the same water, with hot water being added as each new person got inside the tub. The first one washed, needless to say, was always the cleanest. I can't imagine how dirty that water was. Then she recalls winter. She said Mr. Farrell, who was a local farmer, would plow the streets with a horse and a plow. And there was only one other snow plow in the town of Concord. It's one plow and one truck. And she said, as a result, we were snowbound for days. And we all had to clear our driveway of snow. Pop, her dad, would throw it all on the side of the driveway, and we would build a big hill for us to ski and sled. He would build 2 or 3 igloos with passages to all 3, and we always were outside. Needless to say, we never had real warm clothes or mittens, but we had fun. And then she recalls, as she got older, I would walk to the meadows located on the way to Neshotic Hill. The banks of the Concord River would overflow into the meadow. It was a wonderful place to skate. Somebody gave me an old pair of skates, and I learned to skate myself. I was very good at skating, she says. In fact, people called me Sonja Henie, who was a movie star and a skater from Norway. And the kids would build fire to keep us warm, she says. And then she writes about Christmas. She loved Christmas, and those associated with the Hanson family know how much Christmas was a special time for all of us. But she writes as her childhood. She said, our gifts on Christmas morning would consist of one present: pajamas, socks, underwear, always something practical. We had also got an orange, which was a big deal, and a box of hard candy. One year, and this was a special memory, I got a doll. We were very happy regardless of what we got, and we took care of our belongings. Our parents had very little money, so we appreciated everything they did for us. And also she recalls on Sundays. Sunday was a day of visiting and entertaining. We went to church on Long Street, mostly Scandinavian people. We walked to Sunday school every Sunday about 2 miles. She said, I like to go to church because the Anderson boy was there. Whatever gets you to church. She said, Ralph owned a convertible. I was 15 years old and dying to learn to drive, so he let me drive his car. He was the one who taught me, and at 16 years old, I got my license. She recalls that she dated Ralph very briefly, but she says, he was not my type. I preferred the Latin-loving Italians to the cold Scandinavians. She had her opinions, and hence she married my dad. And my dad his dad had a store in Concord, and he would deliver groceries to the Hanson family. I only found out this later, and I can imagine my dad, as he visited this family with 5 beautiful-looking girls, and saw this blonde girl, and he said, this is pretty good. I'll always deliver groceries to the Hanson family. Anyway, Lil was attracted to him, and they got married. And this is one thing I only found out later on, too, is they eloped. At that time, the Italians and the Norwegians and these groups didn't mix, so they eloped. And they eloped in a Catholic church. And she had promised the priest that she would bring up her children Catholic, which she did. Well, I have a copy of this, and there's more to that story. If anyone wants to get her story, just let me know. Give me your email address, and I'll be happy to email you her story. But she was a writer. She also wrote a letter to us kids, to Janet, Rick, and me. In her letter, she gave some instructions for this service, which we followed. But she also wrote this, and I quote, "I hope that all my kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, and great-grandkids believe in God as I do, so that we'll all meet in heaven someday." In that letter, she also repeats what she said about being saved on the trestle. She said, "When I didn't die on the trestle over the Concord River when I was 13, it was God who saved me." It was her hope that we all believe and will be reunited with her in heaven. She had a strong belief, and she clung to that just as she did to that railroad trestle when she was 13 years old. The subject of heaven has fascinated me for many years. I've read all that the Bible says about heaven and several other books on the topic, including a number of books on people that have had near-death experiences. And I find that that's fascinating. Two books in particular stand out to me. One was called Imagine Heaven. The other was Imagine the God of Heaven by John Burke. And I had the privilege of interviewing John Burke in a podcast that aired last May. And if you want a link to that, I'd be happy to say it. But several themes came out of these near-death experiences. And John Burke interviewed about 1,500 people who had near-death experiences. The main theme was the overwhelming love that people felt when they encountered God and they encountered Jesus. They had a sense of love and a sense of peace. And the people were reunited with members, family members and friends who had passed before them. And those friends and family members had new bodies. And there were beautiful surroundings, vivid colors were there. And some even had a little glimpse of hell. What interested me is people around the world who had contacted John Burke told him about their near-death experiences. Some of them were atheists or followers of other religions, but after experiencing the love of Jesus in their near-death experience, they became followers of his. You know, life is difficult for all of us. You know, we have loss, we suffer pain, injustice, we suffer all sorts of things, and eventually, you know, we will die. But there is hope that our true home is in heaven, and that's where Lil is now. One of my favorite quotes from the Bible that talks about heaven is in the book of Revelation, in which the Apostle John talks about the end times, but he talks about heaven. And this is he talks about there being a new heaven and a new earth, and that God will dwell with his people. Then he says this, and I think it's very important. He says, God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. Now that's something to look forward to. Now we mourn that Lil is no longer with us. And you know, even I've had the experience when I drove to the Cape for the first time after her death a few weeks ago. You know, I half expected to see her again. And sometimes I think, well, I should call my mom. But you know, she's not with us now. So we mourn that she's not with us, and we miss her greatly. But we can celebrate, and that's what this is about. We can celebrate that she is now home with God and has a new resurrected body. She's reunited with others in a place of fantastic beauty and love. And she's in heaven not because she was a good person, and certainly she was a good person, but I should say that she also wasn't a saint. And I think those that know her closely knew that she wasn't a saint. She had flaws like we all do, and that's called sin. But she had a strong faith, and that's why she's in heaven. And her hope is that we'll all join her one day. And she also should say this, that she carried this, she understood that. And she was with her mother before her mother passed away. And I remember her telling me that her mom had visions of angels and visions of heaven, and she carried that with her. So we can all celebrate that that's where Lil is. Well, I'll end by thanking God for my mom, for her faith, that she's helped foster in me, for her love, and her example of what it means to be a parent and to serve others. And now my brother Rick will talk about all her volunteer experiences.
Wow, thank you for coming. I know many of you traveled quite a distance, and we really greatly appreciate it. So I wanted to briefly speak about all of the volunteer work that my mother had done. It's really amazing because she had a family with 4 kids, my dad. She worked at Green Acres Day Nursery School and still found time to do volunteer work. So approximately 12 years ago, when I had flown out from California, I was sitting with my mom, and she was mentioning some of the volunteer work. And I asked her at that time, put it on a piece of paper. I'm really curious to see everything that you had done. So about a week or 2 later, in the mail with one of her letters, I received 5 pages of notebook, pieces of paper, 8.5 by 11, of all the volunteer work she had done. So I'm going to briefly, when I started to read this, and I was looking at it the other day, I thought there's too many items here to mention, but I want to mention a few of the things she did. And she did this throughout her life for years. So even before I was born, she was an organizer, liked to organize people and organize parties and so on, and she did this throughout her life. And before I was born, when they lived on Orange Street in Waltham, she used to like to have a neighborhood children's Halloween party. And they did this on Orange Street, where they handed out Easter baskets for every child, and she did that for years. Later, when she and my dad moved to Waltham in Warrendale, she was a den mother and a Cub Scout leader for many years. She was a Brownie leader. She was a camp counselor. I think one of the most amazing things is the house that we lived in Warrendale, which is a part of Waltham. We had a playground directly behind our house. And Skip and I were young. We were in elementary school. And both my mom and my dad and a neighbor, his name was Arthur Fitzmaurice, decided that they should start a Little League, the official Little League for all the kids. So my mom and dad and Arthur set up the Warrendale Little League baseball team, where hundreds of kids played. They had many teams, the Red Sox, the Yankees, Detroit, and so on. And there were hundreds of kids in this. And it was a huge undertaking for them and very little money to run the entire program. But on opening day, it was amazing. We all met at Stop and Shop in Waltham, and all the teams were dressed with our uniforms and our hats, and we walked down Main Street about 1.5 miles with all the cars stopping and beeping, and we walked all the way to the ball field. We did this for every single season, and it was just one wonderful memory. My mom also was set up and organized the Little League team, and the league did not have much money at all. And the town of Waltham would not give much money to run the entire program. So they decided to set up a snack shack. And so there was a snack shack that was built in the playground, and there my mom worked selling candy and chips and drinks, and she did this all summer long during the evenings for many, many years. and all the money went to run the program for all the kids. She helped, as Skip had mentioned, she helped with the banquets at the end of the season. We all had a banquet for all the players and the parents, and it was held in the basement of St. Jude's Church in Waltham. One of the things I remember is we had a speaker come to that, to one of my banquets, and that was Carl Yastrzemski. Carl Yastrzemski was that was his first year in the league, but it was pretty amazing to see Carl Yastrzemski. In 1962, they decided to have a fundraiser, and they they reached out to West Point and got the West Point Cadets Glee Club to come to Waltham to sing. And again, as I said, it was a fundraiser. My mother found homes for all 75 cadets to stay in overnight. So they had no place to sleep. She had a call on residents of Waltham that if they would house one of the cadets overnight, and she was successful for getting all the cadets there. And she also found ushers for the concert and so on, and it was a big success. I kind of realized why she did that, because she brought the cadets, and we had a cadet stay in our home, and that made sense because my sister Diane ended up dating one of the cadets. So, sorry, Dee. Yeah, she went to graduation at one point, yeah. She was a non-paid board member at Green Acres Day Nursery School, and I don't know if Green Acres was a very high-end nursery school, and she worked all through that. Those were paying jobs. She started out as a driver, and then she taught and ran in the office and so on, did a number of things, but also for years she sat on the board of directors there. When she moved to, both of my parents decided to sell their house in Waltham, and they moved to Newfound Lake in Bristol, she decided she wanted to reach out. She loved working with children, and she loved working with the elderly. So she decided to take an 8-week course to become a certified, it was like a hospice person, helper, to sit with people that were sick and dying. She would also drive them to appointments, take them out for lunch, take them just for a nice ride so that they could get out of their house. This, she found, she talked about quite a bit about this, that how difficult and emotional it was for her, but she felt that it was really helping the unfortunate to have an easier time in their waning years. Also in Bristol for many years, my mom, they used to have a 4th of July parade, which was kind of corny, but anyway, it was fun to go to the 4th of July parade. And my mom would always decorate the floats at the 4th of July parade. Then, unfortunately, to embarrass the whole family, she would wear the craziest outfits on the float and be waving as they went down the street in Bristol. And she loved doing that. She really enjoyed it. Also in Bristol, she planted many lilac bushes in the Bristol Cemetery, which was run by the Women's Club. She planted flower boxes in downtown Bristol, and they ran a number of other programs for all of the people of Bristol and the seniors. At Camelot Acres, where they lived in New Hampshire, my mom and dad they were organizers, and they always loved a party. So they would always set up parties on the beach for many, many years for all the residents to come. And some of you are here and remember those parties. They were just absolutely wonderful, where all the residents of Camelot would show up. And I should say, Camelot Acres was an 80 parcel property. And we were, I think, house number 4 or 5 in there. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm going to mention that a little later here as I tell a little story about that. When my parents decided to move for the winter, because they were living in New Hampshire, they decided to move to Florida. And they moved to a place called Hawaiian Isles, which was kind of a mobile home place, but they had those what called double wides or triple wides, which are permanently installed there, and they loved it. The unfortunate thing is their road was called Cockroach Bay Lane. Okay, you can imagine that's a great one if you're a real estate agent trying to sell a house on Cockroach Bay Lane. But anyway, so again, here they love to organize and get all the neighbors together. So they would reach out to everybody that in Hawaiian Isles and get everyone on Cockroach Bay Lane to dance to the music, eat and mingle with their neighbors. And they always did this, especially at the end of the season when all the snow birds would end up moving up north again. But they really had a good time in Hawaiian Isles. After my dad died, my mom decided that it was time to move to Concord to be a little closer and to get out of the snow. So when they were in Concord, her and her sister, Tema Soberg, decided there was not enough money going into the senior program. They had an official program and a building in Concord, but there was not enough money to run the various programs that were going on. And so both of them decided, hey, why don't we set up a thrift shop and have people donate, and then we'll sell those goods and give the money all to the senior program. So both Tema and my mom set the program up. They got a space in the building, took on donations. It was a lot of hard work. They had to sort through everything and then put it on shelving and so on and sit there, and it was highly successful. They did that for 10 years, selling household items, and 100% of the money, which was tens of thousands of dollars we found out, was raised and given to the senior program. So both Tema and my mom, eventually it just became so overwhelming and so successful that they ended up having to find other people to help them, and they were successful in getting 12 other women to help in the shop. Then, okay, when in Concord, my mom decided to join this group called the Concord Shakers. It was a tambourine group that played tambourines to music. And how it worked is, so music would be playing, and they were all in their good humor outfits. They had their white sneakers, their white pants, white shirt, red vest, little bow ties, and the music would play, and they would take their tambourines and bounce them off their head and their hips and their feet, and anyway, and she just loved it. They really had a good time. Well, it turned out to be very, very successful, and they received lots of many thank yous. It became very, very popular. It first started out just to play for senior groups. Then they kind of graduated up, and they were asked to play at many schools around the area and throughout Massachusetts. During that time, for whatever reason, they actually received lots of press. They were in the news, and we saw the various articles that were in the paper, and they were actually on the like Good Morning Boston morning television show. Well, during that time, apparently a agent for Jay Leno saw that piece and decided that he wanted to put him on the Jay Leno show. So they all hopped on a plane in Boston, and what was really nice is when they were all in the plane, the pilot came on before they took off and announced that they had some very famous people on the plane, that it was the Concord Shakers. When they landed in Los Angeles, there were limousines waiting to take them to their hotel. And they went to their hotel, and they were put up in suites in a beautiful hotel, and then had a tour by Jay Leno of the facility and some of his vehicles. And then that night, they were on the Leno show. So it was pretty amazing. I should have mentioned, too, when she was in Florida, she was also in another tambourine group, too. And there's where she got her experience of banging the tambourine off her head and graduating up to the Concord Shakers. Mom worked 1 day a week serving lunches to seniors in the community hall in Concord. And again, you know, when I looked at the 5 pages, I couldn't believe all the stuff, how she did it. My mom always talked, if you ever asked her how she lived or why she lived so long, she always said to keep moving. And that was her thing, to keep moving, do stuff, read, play puzzles to keep the mind going and to keep moving. And that's what she did. And I really believe that's why she lived for so long. So she touched many, many lives, especially children, between the nursery school and the different volunteer work she did, and with the various senior groups that she had done. So I know all of our family very, very proud of what she had done. So now I just want to tell a funny story. You know, Skip and I were actually talking a little bit about this. I guess this is the one funny story that comes to my mind. When you think of everything and you think of your parents, you probably have something that's funny that happened in your lives with your parents. Well, this is mine, a funny story about my mom. So my parents had bought a house in New Hampshire, in Bristol, New Hampshire, called Camelot Acres. And again, this was a 80-acre parcel. We were one of the few homes in there. We were home, as I said, about 4 or 5, okay? And we lived on Lancelot Lane. So at that time, again, there were just a few homes. It was really tough at first. In fact, the home that was built, that my dad bought, was empty. There were no walls, no ceilings, no anything. It was just a shell. And so there was a rule when all of us went to the lake for the weekend, which we all remember, okay? My dad said, Saturday's work day, Sunday's play day. So we all had to, literally this house was a shell. So we had to put up ceiling tiles and wiring and put walls in and flooring and you name it. We had to build that house from scratch. And it was a lot of fun doing, but also a lot of work. I don't know why. My dad seemed to have, he liked big boulders, big rocks, and I hated this job. He wanted to have a rock wall in front of the house. And he would go into the woods all around there and find rocks and then ask us to dig the rocks out and roll them down the dirt road and put them in front of the house. So that was probably the worst job. You're laughing. That was brutal. Okay? But one of the things that they also did is we used to have to park our car on the street. And so they wanted to do a cutout. So the house is sitting on a hill. And in front of the house where we'd park the cars, Dad said, okay, it's time. We need to get the cars off the dirt road because it was a 1-lane road. And so we had to manually dig an area into the hillside for a couple cars to park. Well, okay, so now I come to my story here. So when I was a teenager, I'm now 16 years old, and I used to have so much fun. We'd spend the summers at the lake, and it was just greatest thing, and that's actually what I did for my kids later on, is have a lake house too. And it all comes from my experience of having a lake house on Newfound Lake. So I decided, and my good friend, Britt Shagnon, Britt's dad was the developer of all the Camelot Acres. Britt and I decided to sneak out of the house one night. And so about 2 in the morning. And I had just got my license. And my parents had given me their old car, which I thought it was really something, because I had a 1963 Comet convertible, black with a white convertible top and a red interior, and I was really hot stuff. The only problem was that my brother, who was attending Harvard at the time and was into his politics, this is during the flower power years, for those that remember, Skip had decided to put big stick-on daisies on the sides of the cars. They were all these daisies that said Eugene McCarthy for president. Okay? It was embarrassing. I loved the car, hated the daisies. But anyway, so Britt and I decided, okay, we're going to meet at 2 o'clock that night, and when everyone's sleeping. So I get up, and we snuck out of the home, and I met Britt out front. So, okay, how are we going to do this? So the point was, the reason why we were going to do this is, and Joey, some of you will remember this, there were cottages that were maybe a quarter of a mile away from us. And they had a Indian name, and they had totem poles there. And the totem poles were probably about 12 feet high, and they were beautifully cut, for a totem pole and painted and so on. One day, Britt and I realized, hey, one of these is loose. Why don't we go and we'll pull the totem pole out of the ground, and we'll float it down to Camelot Acres and put it on the beach and freak out everybody that there's a totem pole on the beach. And this is typical 16-year-old stuff, crazy stuff. So we snuck out, and I snuck out of the home, and Britt and I are pushing the car out of the cutout area. And then down, we had to push the car to the lake. So I wouldn't start it because I knew I would wake somebody. No lights. And you have to understand, this is in New Hampshire. There's no street lights. There's no anything. It is pitch black. And I have a black car, all right? You couldn't see anything. So he's behind pushing the car. I'm at the door pushing the car and with the steering wheel trying to steer it. And we're going from our house. It was downhill. Well, the car started to go so fast that I had to yell to him to stop pushing because I'm now running, and I had to jump into the car and slam the brake on before it ended up in the lake. Because those of you that know, remember that road down to the lake was so steep, and that car almost ended up in the lake. Well, so at that point, now I have to drive around the block to get back on Lancelot Lane. So I start the car and turn the lights on, and I drive down this way and then take a left and come back around and now take another left, and now I'm on Lancelot Lane. And I'm probably, 200 yards away from our house. And so I said to Britt, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut off the lights of the car, okay, and I'm going to floor the car, okay, and try and get up to 25, 30 miles an hour, and then I'm going to put it in neutral, and we're going to go gliding past the home, and Mom and Dad won't hear us, and we're out to get that totem pole, all right? So we're out there, and he's like, okay, that's fine. So I start the car, turn off the lights, floor the car, get going, and we're going, and I said, Britt, there's something in the middle of the road. There's something. And he said, don't turn on the lights. Don't turn on. I said, Britt, there's something in the middle of the road. and I flip on the lights as I'm just in front of our house, and there's my mom in her nightgown with her arms going, stop, stop, stop. Anyway, so I got busted. I got busted, and she used to call me Rickaroo, and she said, Rickaroo, park that car and go to bed. And anyway, so that's the story that I always remember and always chuckle about. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. If you want some more of those flower stickers, I can get you some. So now I have my sister Janet has a story or two to tell about my mom. So if you want to make your way up, Jen.
As usual, I'm not prepared like my brothers, so this is off the top of my head. But I just want to say, the one thing about my mother was she lived till she died. She enjoyed her life. If you asked her to go to lunch, no matter what, she was there going. So I have a couple of little funny stories about right up till practically she passed away. One of them, I got a new little convertible, and she had just had her hair done, and I said, I'd like you to come with me for lunch. And she said, oh, my hair's going to get blown. And I said, no, we'll go real slow with the top down. So I took her walker. I had to pick it up, stick it in the back seat. Well, it was a Sunday. Most of the places were closed. So I find a biker bar. That was it. So I said, well, we'll go in here and have lunch. And she said, I don't want the walker. I'll hold your arm. I said, okay, Mom, Now, she was 103. So I walk her in, and it was a Patriots game. So they were all screaming and yelling, and the Patriots game is on. But they saw my mother, and they kind of, stopped, made a big deal. How old is she? And I said, she's 103. So we had our lunch, and we're getting ready to leave. And I took her arm to walk her out. One of the biker guys comes over. He said, I'll walk her out. And typical my mother, she goes, get away from me. He's walking me out. So, so she takes his arm with a big smile. I have a picture of her. I have a little album. I have a picture of her with her biker boyfriend out in the parking lot. And she was happy as anything. He walked her over to the car. And that was at 103. She spent Christmases and Easters at John's house. And Easter, shortly before she passed away, she was at John's, and they said to her, Nana, you must be tired. Are you ready to go? They picked her up at 1, and it was like 6 o'clock or something. She goes, I'm not ready to go. No, she's eating and drinking, by the way. And so when John got her back to the home, it was locked. They had a call. They had to break into the home because she got there so late. And, so that's the thing she did. She did the same thing the previous Christmas. We said, are you ready to go? She said, okay. So Ashley goes out, starts the car up to warm the car, get her ready to go. No, she says, I'll have another cup of coffee. Now, this is after maybe 3 or 4 eggnogs, a couple glasses of wine. I'm like looking at her thinking she should be falling down here, but she was doing good. So she said, I'll have a cup of coffee. I go, well, I guess we got to go out and shut the car off, Ash. She's not leaving yet, So I think it's a lesson to all of us to enjoy ourselves right up till the end. We never know when the end is coming. And she just was very happy when she was out doing something or with the family, having a good time. And one Christmas, Christmas of 24, Devin and Paige, they had just gotten pregnant, and they surprised Nana. They said, if we have a girl, we're naming the girl after you. And they did have a girl, so we have baby Lily that was born in July. She's here with us. There she is. And I said, she's going to rule the world. She's going to be like her grandmother. And that's all. But we have a million stories. We could go on for 100 years. You know, she just enjoyed it. She enjoyed going to the pilot house where Karen's boys work. She'd jump up on the bar. She'd go, you know, I'm 103, guys. You know, everybody in the place, everybody knew her. And we had a birthday there. The whole place stood up when she walked in and cheered, and all the little kids, so many little kids came over to her. It was really cute. You know, they just came up to her and wished her a happy birthday and gave her a hug and everything. So she was very special, and she enjoyed her life. And she's passed. She's with Dad. And we have to live like she did. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Lots and lots of stories to tell. So I'd like to have my sister Diane Richardson come up. And Diane just had hip surgery, so she's moving a little bit more slowly. But Diane has a few stories to tell, too.
Like Mom would always say, you never let anything keep you down. You just keep moving. You keep moving. So thank you, everybody, for being here. As I am kind of the last speaker in my family, some of the things have been said. We didn't really coordinate everything. So I will try to skip over so we don't repeat anything. But first of all, I think you have heard enough about how we felt as a family and how much we loved our mother. With all of her quirks, her letters that we all got telling us what we've done bad, what we need to do better, and we would all sit around and we would all read letters. That was our topic of conversation. My mom would be sitting, she'd hear everything, and we'd be making fun of the letters that we received. My mother telling me, Diane, you have to get a new job. It's too stressful, get a new job. Diane, discipline your children better. And it wasn't just us kids, it was the grandkids that also got letters from their grandmother telling them they better straighten up and do better in school. So it was always a topic of conversation for us when we got together. And my mom would sit in the corner and laugh, and we called it cackle, because she would just start cackling, and she couldn't stop laughing and cackling. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And next year we'd get another letter again telling us what we've done wrong, and we better straighten up and get our life straight. So it was fun. We all knew that it came from love, and it was done. She was thinking the best for us to get us in shape. It didn't work so much sometimes, but anyway. The other part of my mom was, and I think one of my brothers touched on it too, not only did she volunteer, but she also had jobs. So she was very committed to her family, as my dad was. They were wonderful parents for us. And my mom helped financially by working at several different part-time jobs. And she worked at J.C. Penney's in Waltham as part-time, and the money would all go back into the family. She worked at a place called Clevite, which was in the Waltham Watch Factory, which was a really big deal in Waltham, because if anybody owned a Waltham watch, that was a big deal. She didn't work for Waltham Watch, but we always felt like she did, because she went to work down at the factory at the end of the street, and we were really proud of that. She also worked at women's dress shops. These were all part-time, until she got her most significant job that she absolutely adored, and that was at Green Acres Day School, which was mentioned before. She started as a bus driver, and the great thing about her being a bus driver, she would get a car. So it wasn't a big van. Thank goodness we didn't have a big thing sitting in our driveway. It was like a Woody station wagon. And the school let her keep it so she could use it off time, which way back then, this was quite a long time ago, we became a two-car family. That was a really big deal. But she used to drive the kids, and she'd pick them up in Lexington and Newton and Belmont. She was all over the place. She'd pick them up, bring them to school, and then bring them back. And the director of the school saw in my mom that she really related well to the children, and she was great with the children. So the director approached her to become an assistant teacher, and which she did, and she loved. And for all of my cousins out there that know what this is going towards, my mother learned all the nursery songs that the kids did, all the crafts that the kids did, and we all knew it. As cousins, we all knew it, because come Christmas Eve, when we were all together, come any kind of family celebration, my mother would be leading the group of children. She'd be sitting in front, you know, Johnny, 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 whoops, Johnny. I mean, we all knew every word to everything. If you're happy at Green Acres, clap your hands. So we all got a lesson in that. In one year, even at Christmas Eve, we actually wound up having a Christmas party at my mom's school. And it was probably one of the best Christmas Eves, the Hanson family, we all had together. It was absolutely fabulous. And the kids had a ball because they could play with all the toys, and it was all good. She was asked, beyond that position, she then became head teacher. And then from there, they asked her to get into administration, and she became assistant director at the school. And this was a school way ahead of its time. It was like a Montessori school today that allowed children to really express themselves. And so she did that, and then she was on the board of directors. I asked my mom several times, we had talks about all of her past, and I asked her several times what was the happiest point of her life. And this was several times in a row, and it always came back the same. I think it was the time that I was a teacher and I was with these children. And she said, my really hope in life was that someday I made an impression on some of those children and started them off on a right path. That was, it was just deeply felt. She had the love that all teachers should have. We were very proud of her, very proud of her. The other part of my mom that was touched on, but I want to just show you a little bit more of another side of her. She was an excellent athlete, and my dad was too. They were both really good athletes. And I was going through all of my mom's writings, and stacks of things she wrote. And I came across one, and she's talking about her athletic ability, and she was a pretty humble person. And she said, I want to read you just a part of it that she said, and I will read you her exact words that I took from her diary. In high school, I played all kinds of sports. I was captain of the field hockey team, which I adored. At graduation, I was voted best looking. And then she writes, dash, dash, dash. Audrey Lynch really should have gotten it. And then she writes another dash, dash, dash. I was best athlete and most popular, dash, 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 which, again, I never deserved. So that was a part of my mom, which was the humble part, which she, again, taught all of us. The humbleness, you never praised yourself, you never made a big deal of yourself, you just did what you had to do, and that was it. And that to me just kind of exemplified what she was about, and that and she would never brag about us either. Her friends would all be at parties at my house talking about their kids and how fabulous their kids were, and we'd be sitting in the corner, and there wouldn't be one word coming from my mother about anything great we did. You know, it would be like, yeah, my kids are my kids, you know, that was it. But we all got used to it, and we loved her so dearly. On a personal note, after my dad passed away, my late husband, David, and I started taking my mom on all of our vacations. And
it was absolutely great. And we did this because we wanted to, not because we felt we had to. My mother was actually fun to be with. And she was up, like my sister said, she was up for anything. So it was never like, oh, I have to stay and I can't do this. So we took her, we went to Arizona, California, Pennsylvania, Virginia, upstate New York. Anytime I call her, we're going to go, do you want to come? Oh, sure, I'll come, just pick me up. But for her 80th birthday, by the way, one part of her 80th birthday, she went on a balloon ride over Concord. So that was part of it. The second part was that she wanted to go on a riverboat cruise, and it was starting in Vienna, going through Germany, and then out to Amsterdam. And she called, I think, all of us, and Dave and I were the ones that we said, oh, okay, yep, sure, Mom, we'll go with you on your 80th birthday. We'll go on the cruise with you. And both my husband and I were like, a riverboat cruise, you know. It turned out to be the best cruise we were ever on. We absolutely loved it. Well, the story in this one was, one night, and, you know, when you go on these cruises, they have you busy all day long. You're doing things. So we were, at the end of the day, we were in this small village in Germany, and the boat had come right to, it was a riverside, and it had docked right by the village. And David and I said, this is after dinner, Mom, would you like to join us? We're going to go for a walk. We want to see some of the village and go up in the mountains. And she said, no, I'm really a little tired, and we have a big day tomorrow, so I think I'll just call it quits for the night, which we were both shocked at. And we said, okay, that's great, fine. So we went off. She was going to head to bed. We must have walked for a couple of hours through the village and up in the mountains and everything, and we're heading back towards the boat, and I can hear music. And as I got closer, it's really rock music. And I mean, like sort of acid rock music with tons and tons of teenagers right next to the boat. And her room was on the side of the boat that all this was going on. We get down a little closer, and there's this ring of all these kids around somebody, and there is my mother in the center of the circle, grabbing teenage boys out of to dance with her. We stood on the side, and at least for a few dances, she was still going and going before we could finally get to her and say, Mom, are you okay? Of course I'm okay. She said, I heard the music. I couldn't stay there with this music. I got to get out and dance. She got up, got dressed, got out and danced. We were exhausted. We went to bed that night, finally put her to bed. She's up early in the morning, and the next day we're doing a tour, and she's the one 3 steps ahead of us on the tour. We're dragging our rear end around. So she lived what she preached. Keep moving, keep moving. It's really, really important. And we loved her for it. What I would like to do, too, is, so aside from us as a family, I would like to relate my mom to other people in the family because she was very special to a lot of my cousins and other relatives. And I received a letter from one of my cousins, and he was sorry that he couldn't be here. He's in Austin, Texas, Tommy Keene. But he wrote me a little bit of something about my mom, which also kind of wraps this all up about how we feel. And these are his words. Being around Lil impressed on me the value of living life full. As I conjure up these memories, I am reminded of something she once said to me. Tommy, the secret to my life is not a secret at all. It's just common sense, and it's pretty simple. You must keep active always with your mind and with your body. Keep moving and keep active with other people. And always, always have a positive outlook. And that just is so true because she was within 2 months of being 104 years old, and she always had a positive attitude. We would go on Fridays, I would go on Fridays, and she was still playing Rummikub. The Friday before she passed away, played Rummikub with her, with another woman that my mother would say, oh, that poor old lady, she doesn't really know what she's doing, we'll have to help her. So, but that was her, a positive, good attitude and a really caring. There's one other letter I'd like to read, and I hope, Nancy, you don't mind, but you had sent a letter to my cousin Nancy Colley, because my mom was as important to the Norwegian side as she was to the Italian side of our family. She was embraced on both. And Nancy sent this beautiful letter, which I would like to just read a couple of excerpts from. Nancy writes, "As a little girl, Lil always treated me as her own. I felt a special bond from early on. Lil would tell me wonderful stories about teaching preschoolers, which is the reason I decided to become a teacher. Lil wrote me very long and inspirational letters, hopefully better than what she did to her kids, when I was in college about teaching. She led me to my passion. I continue to tutor even though I retired 5 years ago. I admired how she gave back to her community in so many ways. We wrote to each other a good deal. I reread all of her cards. I roared when I read the card from 2016. My mother was a very opinionated woman, right? 2016, it was the election cycle. And Lil was telling me a great deal about how she hated every candidate that was in for election and why. And then she ended with, well, it's only my opinion, though. When my mom died, Lil said she would be my mom from now on. That meant the world to me. And as a footnote, Nancy also named a daughter Lily. So there are two young girls, well, Lily, your Lily is a little bit older now, but named after my mom. And there's not a lot of people that have that in their life. We're fortunate. So I think really to end it up is just to say, I think you've heard from all four of us, her children, how special she was to us, how many funny stories we have of her, and how much she really touched our lives. And I want to thank you all for coming and for being part of that. She was very special. Thank you.
The only word I can say really is wow, wow. Astonishing stories. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel like we could listen and only just touch the surface of who Lil was, but what an amazing, amazing life. Let us pause for a word of prayer. O God, you are our strength and our Redeemer. You give life and you conquer death. And so with humble and grateful hearts, we praise you. We give you thanks for your steadfast love to dear beloved Lil, all the days of her earthly life. And we thank you for all that she was to her family, her extended family, everyone she encountered, and to the world. We thank you, O God, for her adventure, her sense of humor, the way she could find joy in so many situations. We thank you for her athletic ability, for the way she loved to dance and make music. We thank you for the ways that she taught herself to be more of herself, the way she taught herself to skate, the ways that she enriched the lives of her children and grandchildren and nieces and great-grandchildren with marvelous experiences that they will carry in their hearts for their whole lives. We thank you for the ways that she volunteered, for her organizing, just for the ways that she loved to party and dance, and that she had this motto that you needed to live by keeping alive, by moving. And so, oh God, we pray that we would hold that message in our hearts to keep moving, to keep loving, to keep volunteering, to keep sowing seeds of joy wherever we go, because if we do that, we will continue Lil's legacy of joy and love. We pray, oh God, that you would be with all of her family and extended family and friends. Be their refuge and their strength. Come to them with comfort and compassion. And so into your hands, most merciful God, we commend your beloved one, your beloved daughter, Lillian Hanson Vaccarello. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of the saints in light. We pray this with faith in Jesus Christ, our risen Savior, who is alive with you and the Holy Spirit, and whose prayer we now pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Our concluding hymn was once again one that Lil selected for this time. I'm sure it's one that you know, Amazing Grace. You will find it on page 422 in your hymnal. We will sing verses 1, 2, and 3. And I do want to be sure that at some point you read these wonderful summaries and histories of the hymns that Lil selected, that Skip prepared for you. So, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound.
Save a wretch like me. I once was found, but now I'm sinning. But now was grace that taught my heart to fear. Well, thank you again. Thank you for coming. I want to also thank the pastor, Sally Norris, and our organist, Karen Crosby, for today. Thank you very much for your words and for your music. Before I say the benediction, I want to thank everyone for coming. I know that my mom was honored. And I'd just like to say that there is a reception after this, and it's at the Beach Club. The address is 27 Long Beach Road, Centerville, so it's pretty easy. If you go out here, you take a left, you go through the light, it's about 2 miles down on the road. And the Beach Club is on the left, I think, as you go down there. You take a right. Yeah, I think it is 2 miles. GPS said 2 miles. Yeah, it's 2 miles. 27 Long Beach Road. So you're welcome to come. And so and one thing I should also say, apparently the Beach Club does not allow you to use cell phones, just to take pictures, no calls at the Beach Club. So for the benediction, I'm going to read from the book of Numbers, and this is a benediction for all of us that have attended. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. And I would ask that everyone remain seated while the family, we all make our way to the back of the church so we can greet you. So just stay seated for a couple of minutes, and we'll see you and greet you in the back of the church. Thank you very much again for coming. Sally, thank you. Wonderful. Oh, thank you. Your words were terrific.
Oh, so were me.
Thank you.
And Rick and Diane and Janet were amazing.
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
Thank you so much. It was a very special service. I really appreciate it.
you.
Thanks so much. And I didn't see,
I didn't see Tony either.
I can get him a check, though.
I wouldn't worry about it.
No? Okay. Thank you, but we're happy to clean up or whatever.
I'll tidy up, don't worry.
Okay.
We'll get it.
Okay.
The only thing is the flowers, we'll try to.
Yeah, we'll probably take the flowers back with us. Thank you.